Hi everybody, my name is Detective Constable Chris Nicholson. I'm a member of the Barrie Police Services Fraud Unit. March is Fraud Prevention Month, and we put together a presentation for you for the most common types of scams and prevention methods to help protect yourself from becoming a victim. We hope you find the presentation useful, and as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Barrie Police Service or the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. Good morning, everyone. My name is Detective Constable Nicholson. I'm a member of the Barrie Police Services Fraud Unit, and today I'm going to share a presentation with you on fraud identification and prevention. We're going to be reviewing some of the most common types of scams that our fraud unit has seen, as well as share some advice and some tips so you can avoid being a victim of fraud yourself. We start with the definition of fraud. Fraud is described under the Criminal Code, Section 380 sub 1, as everyone who, by deceit, falsehood, or other fraudulent means, whether or not it is a false pretense within the meaning of the Act, defrauds the public or any person, whether ascertained or not, of any property, money, valuable security, or any service. So, they are guilty of an indictable offense and liable to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 14 years when the subject matter of the offense and the value of the subject matter exceeds $5,000, so if it's a fraud over $5,000, it's an indictable offense, or they're guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or punishable on summary conviction, so a hybrid offense for us, where the value of the matter does not exceed $5,000. So if it's under $5,000, there's a bit more flexibility in prosecution, versus if it's over $5,000, it's a straight indictable offense. Basically, the easiest way to sum it up in the most simplest terms is a theft that also involves a lie is a fraud. So theft plus lie equals fraud. We'll review some common fraud scenarios and scams. It's just a little Dilbert comic we put in there so you can see that, eventually they receive an email at work and the boss is the one who finally clicks on the link. So that's often true. You will see the same link get sent out to hundreds, if not thousands of people, and all it takes is one person to click on the link and start activating the process for the fraud. So first type is romance scams. We're going to get into all these scenarios and scams in more detail further in the presentation. This is just a quick overview. Romance scams. We also see rental scams posted on websites like Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace. Again, we'll get into some further detail in regards to rental scams and how they present themselves. Grandparent scheme, where the fraudster will target the elderly and try to pose as a family member in need. Merchandise scam, where you believe that you are purchasing something, but it's actually fraudulent material. The sale of merchandise, so sometimes you'll walk into places in convenience stores or flea markets and you'll see knockoff merchandise. That's also a type of fraud. Phishing, like the email scam that we see in the cartoon here. A service fraud is a little bit different when somebody offers you a service of some sort, like on your house, be it roofing or other mechanical services. When they promise you something and they don't hold up their end of the bargain, they just take your deposit. A prize scam, where you receive an email or something in the mail, or even sometimes people come to your door and they will try to explain that they have prize money for you, and you often have to send a little bit of money up front for them to release the total value of the prize money. So some common frauds that are involving youth. We'll go over some examples. This is specifically to youth. Anyone really in high school age, college, university. These are the typical types of frauds and scams that we see that affect our youth in our community. The first one is phishing. The traditional phishing emails and text messages are designed to trick the victim, and they often are dealing with a reputable company. So they think they're dealing with somebody, but the emails are slightly different, or some of the identifiers are just slightly off, where it looks very realistic. They'll sometimes use the same symbols and the same emblems as the real company. The messages will direct you to click a link for various reasons, just updating your account information, unlocking your account, or accepting a refund. So if it's from Apple, for example, they might ask you your account's been locked for suspicious activity, please update your security information, and then when you enter the information in that link, obviously the fraudster will now have your security info, your login information, your password. or accepting a refund. They'll ask you for your bank information, where the refund can be sent to. Obviously very, very dangerous, providing your financial details to a stranger, often done through email or other online means. And the goal is to capture personal and or financial information which can be used for identity fraud. So whether they use to take the money from you or they create a completely falsified account to fraud other people but use your name, very, very messy stuff. It can start to affect your credit rating and have an ultimate effect, especially for a young person moving forward when you're trying to establish things such as a credit rating, coming out of college or university. It can make it extremely difficult to do so when you're looking for rental applications or financing a home. It can also be sent by text messages, email, instant messaging platforms, Snapchat, and we've also seen fraudulent links showing up on TikTok and other social media platforms. So if you see an advertisement when you're browsing TikTok and you can't tell if it's legit or not, your best bet is to just close the advertisement or continue swiping through the platform, but not clicking on any of the links that show up in the feed. Another type of fraud scam, especially for youth, is job opportunities. So this is where fraudsters will use popular job listing websites or social media platforms again to recruit potential victims. We're seeing a huge influx in social media because that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to youth. You guys are more likely to engage in social media platforms than you are on job websites. That's maybe a little bit of an older method. The most common fraudulent job advertisements are typically for like a personal assistant or a mystery shopper. They're trying to do something that would seem interesting for you guys. An influencer, common service jobs like cashier, server, car washing, etc. In many cases, they will impersonate legitimate companies. So again, you will receive an email from, might show up as employment at Walmart, at gmail.com or something. We're going to show you a couple of ways you can catch on to something being legitimate or not, but it might seem very legitimate. They might have the Walmart emblem and it might be structured very similar to a legitimate email, but it's in fact false. Also be mindful of friends and family who are posting videos and information that are supporting fraudulent links. Sometimes they are a victim themselves and they're offered money back in exchange for sharing their link on social media. So we've had one instance where a young person caught on to the fraud and exposed the fraudster, but they had already lost a significant amount of money. And the fraudster said, well, if you post, the video on your TikTok account and, 10 or 15 more victims approach us, we can release your money and send you your money back. So at the end of the day, people are motivated because they feel embarrassed and they just want to get their money back and recuperate their losses. So it's just, they're acting in good faith and not really stopping to think about what the overall repercussions would be.
I'm 3 on your side's Gary Harper, and I've exposed the so-called job scam before, but I've come across a similar scam where the scammer actually hacks into somebody else's email and then targets you. Brianna Paredes wanted to experience life away from her Phoenix home, so she enrolled at Marquette University, way up in Wisconsin.
It's nice. I really like the campus too. It's downtown, and it's like the heart of Milwaukee. There's a lot of restaurants, a lot of museums.
But like a lot of college students, Brianna is back in Phoenix for the summer and needs a part-time job. That's the very reason she jumped online and started searching job recruiting sites, and it didn't take long before she was contacted from someone who appeared to be from her university because of the email address.
I looked up some jobs, and then I received an email, and I looked at the email. I usually click the email to check who it's from, and it was from a professor, I'm guessing.
In the email, the person wrote they needed a personal assistant, and the pay wasn't bad, about $400 a week.
They said that I would receive mail for them and pay bills for them and send some books to the bookstore and stuff like that.
Brianna accepted the job, and once she did, she received a check, and the amount shocked her.
$3,550.
That $3,550 check appeared to be legitimate. It even had a hologram. Brianna followed instructions by depositing the check into her personal bank account and then forwarded $3,100 to a so-called bookstore. She was also told to keep $400 for herself as payment.
then I was like, okay, that's kind of sketchy, you know?
But this authentic-looking check turned out to be fake. Brianna's bank told her it was bogus, but by that time, she had already forwarded the money to the scammer, and all $3,500 was drained from Brianna's bank account.
That's very stressful actually, because I have to like pay my school bills and stuff.
Unfortunately, Brianna had fallen for something called the job scam. In an email to 3 on Your Side, Marquette University says they are aware of the issue and that the scam affected a handful of accounts on campus when someone hacked their computer system and posed as a university employee. The university went on to say that they quickly secured the compromised email account and was able to delete all scam emails from the server. As for Brianna, the so-called job scam has been a costly lesson.
It's very sad, but it's very eye-opening. It's a lesson learned for sure.
This is a good reminder. If you ever receive a check and you're told to deposit the money and then forward on some of that money, you're most likely getting yourself involved in a scam. Be careful. I'm Gary Harper, 3 on Your Side.
Okay, so moving on, another type is merchandise and the sale of merchandise. We see this a lot with youth. They may place advertisements on popular classified sites, or again, social media networks. They may also create websites that share the look and feel of legitimate manufacturers. So sometimes you might see a website come up for Apple AirPods, for example, and you think you're going to a legitimate website to buy AirPods for half the price. And then when you go to the website, it's completely false. When you enter your credit card information or something in the website, they're actually capturing all of that personal information and using it for many reasons to continue to defraud you and try to defraud other people. So they will typically generate traffic to their products by advertising them at deep discounts. So like I mentioned, there's a reason why Apple AirPods cost what they cost. So if you see them for, say $80 or $100, that's something to be aware of, obviously. If it's too good to be true, it most likely is. So consumers may receive counterfeit products, lesser valued unrelated goods, or in some cases, you might pay for this on the website and expecting to get a pair of AirPods for $80, just to find out that months later, nothing's coming in the mail. Consumers who are offering service or selling merchandise are at the risk of receiving fraudulent payments. So in most cases, you will receive an overpayment with instructions to forward the difference to a third party, i.e. the shipping company. So, the item will be listed for $80, but they'll want you to send $120 to cover the expenses for shipping because they're going to do it through a third party. Victims that comply are subsequently left without their merchandise or payment. So what happens is, sometimes if they send you, say, a check for $150 for a $100 item because it's going to cost you $50 to ship it, so they seem like they're doing you a favor. So you receive the fraudulent Interac e-transfer for $150, and you e-transfer them the $100 for payment, only to find out that their e-transfer they initially sent you, the money was sourced from a fraudulent income and is no longer valid. So when the bank claws that money back, instead of only being out $100 for the AirPods, you're actually out $250 for the initial transfer that you accepted into your account. So please check and validate information on websites and links. So we'll give you a couple examples of how to do that and some areas for concern. Another common type, and we see this a lot with the college and university students especially, is rental scams. So this is where the fraudsters will use online classified websites. Again, social media is huge. There's a reason why social media is showing up in all different types of scams. It's one most commonly accessed by youth. They will post advertisement for rentals, so 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom apartments, rooming houses, etc. Property is usually located in a desirable area with a below average price, so interested consumers are asked to complete an application with their personal information. So if you're coming to Barrie and you're going to be attending Georgian College and you're looking for somewhere in the East End to stay, and you've been looking at rental applications for houses and rooms, and they're typically, say, $800 to $900 a month. If you see one that shows up for $700 a month, you got to be a little bit cautious and a little bit weary. Like, why is that price below average when all the other ones are going for, $800 or $900? But they do that to pique interest and try to get as many people to respond as possible. And ultimately, the more people who respond will be better for them. Often the supposed landlord claims to be out of the country and is in a hurry to rent the property to the right person. Victims are asked to place a deposit to secure a viewing or to receive keys. Funds are often sent electronically or through money service businesses. So a lot of times they'll use third-party payments, try to get the money from you. But unfortunately for the victim, the property is not for rent and may not even exist at all. Sometimes they'll use a fraudulent listing or a completely falsified address. And the listings are often created from listings for properties that are for sale or have recently sold. So they'll use legitimate MLS or realtor listings that have photos of the inside of the house, but they'll use that for their fraudulent rental application. Meanwhile, the house was actually sold a few months ago. So how can you protect yourself? Do not open or click the link in unsolicited emails or text messages. Be sure to verify its accuracy by hovering over hyperlinks or carefully examining the email address. When looking for a job, be sure to research the employer. Most companies will not use a free web domain. So this is the example I was using at Walmart. So you'll notice the legitimate one is recruiting@walmart.ca versus walmart@gmail.com or recruiting@walmart@gmail.com. Look for ratings on Google and other open sources, and don't be afraid to ask the employer for references from current employees. So you're allowed to speak to current employees who are working for the company and get their feedback on what they are like as an employer. Spelling mistakes and grammatical errors are often indicators of fraudulent websites or materials. And if possible, use a credit card when shopping online. This way, consumers are offered fraud protection and you might actually receive a refund. So if you received anything other than the product you ordered, you can contact your credit card company to dispute the charge. So under the Consumer Protection Act, if you're not delivered what the item was promised to you, you can apply to have them claw back the money for you. Okay, so here's an example of how it can happen to anyone. This is one of my personal emails that came to me, and I received this email notification from the fraudster himself. So it says, I would like you to please cancel this complaint. So you'll notice complaint is spelled incorrectly. The resources of should be department, but it's department, can be better used. I'm canceling this complaint as all monies have been returned. So even just the verbiage, you'll notice we're not even 2 sentences in, and the grammar is off, the spelling is off. In addition, I've spoken instead of spoken to the manager at Mr. Stevenson's bank, and due to U.S. banking laws, they have finished with their 3 levels of investigation. So you can see throughout here, please confirm this file has been canceled. I appreciate your diligence. My family members are extremely upset. So this came in from the fraudster through a third-party account takeover, pretending to be my victim and wanting me to cancel the investigation because I had already done some further investigation and follow-up and was getting close to identifying who the suspect was. So it just goes to show you, upon first, had I believed this email at face value, I could have potentially closed the occurrence and then moved on. Okay, so we'll give you guys a scenario. This is something I like to do in person just to see what everybody's reaction is. But if a student in your school is selling a pair of Apple AirPods for $100, the student has advertised they are brand new in the box with the packaging on them. You ask him for a picture of them and he sends you a stock photo from the Apple website. He says he will accept an email money transfer or cash payment for them, and when he receives the money, he will leave them for you in your locker. So are you going to purchase these AirPods? Why or why not? Ultimately, at the end of the day, there is no wrong answer. However, often something is too good to be true, it simply is. So the AirPods could have been lesser quality than legitimate, might have been knockoff Apple AirPods. They could have also been stolen from the store, another student, or somewhere else. And you could send the money to the student and he could ultimately not end up his end of the transaction. If he attends your locker, he may end up taking something else of value from your property.
Investigates with a deeper look at those annoying scam calls that most of us get every single day. They're actually a big crime and can often trick our loved ones. 5 Investigates, Karen Anderson, found this is a growing problem, most frequently targeting the senior population, Karen.
Yes, and Maria, the FBI says last year in Massachusetts, 1,200 people over the age of 60 lost more than $11 million to scammers. The financial losses are actually believed to be much higher because many older Americans never report it because they feel ashamed or embarrassed. Well, tonight, we hear about the scams and the fallout from a woman who never told anyone what was happening.
I was flying high with all the things I could do. I truly believed that this was going to be mine.
Joan Beavers is a retired school principal and nationally known dog breeder.
I love my dogs.
In 2013, Joan received a call that would change her life. She was told she'd just won $2.5 million in the lottery. All she needed to do was pay a lawyer's fee, some taxes, and the money would be hers.
Not only could I get out of debt, but how could I help this one and how could I help that one?
When they asked her to put $400 on a money pack card, she did it. When they told her to wire money, she did. But the calls and the payment demands kept on coming. Joan was told each one would be the last, and then she would get her millions.
I was late for school many times because I would run down to get it out really early because all I had to do was send him $150 and it would get this thing rolling. I believed him because he was so believable. He was so believable. He had the name of all the restaurants in the area. He knew all the streets. He knew everything about my home.
Joan got to a point where she couldn't pay her mortgage. She sold her life insurance policy, borrowed from family and friends.
How much did you lose?
I lost $27,000. It's a great loss.
Joan was ensnared in what's known as a Jamaican lottery scam. Scammers there target people in the U.S. and also hire or dupe people here to assist in their criminal con game.
They see these people as prey.
Michael Kroll is the assistant special agent in charge of the Boston office of Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI.
Once they get money from these victims, it's like blood in the water. These criminal networks and these transnational criminal organizations have started to become much more efficient in how they target their victims.
Sounded like I had won something.
Even 95-year-old former FBI Director William Webster and his wife were targeted in a Jamaican lottery scam. In this video posted on the FBI website, you can listen in as the conversations go from nice
72 million. You're the first place winner.
to nasty.
I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill your husband. I'm gonna set your house on fire.
The lottery scam is one of many targeting older Americans. The number one scam, con artists who pose as the IRS. Others impersonate police, utility employees, or tech support workers. Federal investigators tell 5 Investigates the fastest growing scheme is the romance scam, where criminals pose as prospective partners on dating websites.
I didn't think anyone did this to people. Why would I think someone would do this to another human being?
After a year and a half, Joan finally admitted to herself she'd been duped. She wrote a letter to the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica. 4 months later, she got a call from an agent with HSI. As a result of her case, 4 people were arrested.
If you could say something to the scammers right now, what would you say?
Please leave people alone. You know, we're good people. You know, we're good people. We've worked hard all our life. You know, leave the elderly alone.
And investigators say there are common things to look out for to avoid these scams. If anyone tells you you won money but wants money in exchange, or they tell you to buy gift or money cards, you're likely being duped. HSI says call your local police department for advice and help. Karen Anderson, 5 Investigates.
Extortion scams. So extortion happens when someone unlawfully obtains money, property, or services from a person, entity, or institution through coercion. There may be threats of an arrest warrant or imprisonment if the consumer does not cooperate with the fraudster's demands. The threats can be directed at yourself or loved ones. They may request personal information such as a social insurance number, date of birth, address, etc., or request that consumers empty their bank accounts and deposit funds to be cleared from illegal activity and returned once their investigation is complete. They may also ask for your assistance in capturing the real bad guy. So sometimes they'll pretend to be someone from a police service, the RCMP, the FBI, anything like that, where they're pretending to be, they want your assistance in sending money to try to trap the real bad guy or try to catch the real bad guy. So they'll ask you to buy gift cards or Apple iTunes cards or something to try to lure the bad guy when really the actual person who's messaging you is the real bad guy and you're just providing them with additional material. It's also known as a grandparent scheme. So a lot of times they'll tell you, they'll contact elderly people and explain to them that, we have your grandson or your granddaughter, they're in trouble, they've been in a car accident, they need some money because they're stranded, can you help them out? And then it just grows into this elaborate scheme where you continually send more money. Like you send money to help them with the car accident, but then, the other party involved in the car accident is now suing them, so you need to send an additional $10,000 to try to keep the matter out of court. And then it doesn't matter what you do or how much money you send, they're always asking for more and more, and it can get upwards of tens of thousands of dollars by the time you're so deep into the scheme. Another one is romance scams. So this is actually quite common amongst seniors and the elderly. Fraudsters will use every type of dating or social networking site available to contact their victims. So their accounts are created using photos stolen from legitimate people. Often their background stories mimic the victims, and they claim to work in the military, overseas, or successful business people. So this is often, we see this over Facebook quite frequently. They'll try to message you and see that they share the same interests. So if you have on your Facebook feed that let's say you're really big into skiing, that's one of your things that you'd like to do, they will pose as a legitimate person who has attractive photos of them skiing or doing winter activities to try to seem that you guys have shared interests. But then they'll claim to be a member of the military. They move a lot for work. They work overseas. They're gone for extended periods of time. And as you're forming these relationships, there's always some sort of excuse as to why they won't come back home and won't come meet you in person. So these conversations will often start as friendships. However, fraudsters quickly profess their love to gain their victims' trust, affection, and money. They often prey on the goodwill and kind hearts of their victims. So this type of fraud relies heavily on the victim's emotions. It may last for months, if not years, or until the victim has nothing left to give. Fraudsters will also always run into trouble and are unable to refund their victims. However, they will continue to make empty promises and continue to ask for more money. Prize scam seems pretty straightforward. They're informed that they are the winner of a large lottery or some sort of sweepstake, and even though they have never purchased a ticket or entered to win. So prior to receiving any winnings, the victim will be asked to pay a number of upfront fees. So they can also include, but not limited to, taxes, import fees, additional surcharges for delivery, and requests for charitable donations as part of the prize money. So they'll say, we're going to send you a check for $1 million, but is there any way, that you could send us $50,000 to support the local charity that this sweepstakes was surrounded on, because we want a certain amount of proceeds to go back to the charity. So the fraudsters will encourage you to send $50,000 of your own legitimate money, thinking that you have $1 million coming back your way. It wouldn't seem like a big loss if you're going to receive that large amount of money. However, the money never comes, and at the end of the day, you've just sent $50,000 to who knows where. They're often requested in completely untraceable means, so such as Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, gift cards such as Google Play or Apple iTunes cards, and often prepaid MasterCards, or in some cases, we've seen people send cash through couriers. So you're not allowed to send large amounts of cash through the mail in Canada, but we see people hide it in large books or dictionaries, that sort of thing, where they'll hollow out the center of the book and they'll place, $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000 in cash and send it off to where these fraudsters want it delivered. So no winnings are ever received. So how can you protect yourself from these frauds? First and foremost, never assume that the phone numbers appearing on your call display are accurate. So sometimes it's from a voice over IP line. It's an internet protocol phone number that's generated by an application on your phone. And the phone number changes every time they connect and try to contact somebody. So no government agency will contact you and tell you that your SIM is blocked or suspended, nor will they threaten you with legal action. So Revenue Canada is not going to call you and tell you that your account has been suspended. If you don't send them money right away, they are going to have you charged or call the police, right? And if that's the case, I would encourage those people to call your local police department, and that way you can see somebody face to face. But I can assure you that you will not be charged for anything in that regard. No government or law enforcement agency will demand an immediate payment or for you to submit all of your money for investigation. So again, we're not in the business of extorting people. We'll never ask you to request payment to your local police service. No government or law enforcement agency will request payment by Bitcoin or a money service or gift card. So if they claim to be an RCMP officer and they want you to send cryptocurrency, that right off to the hop should be ringing a few bells. It's obviously very suspicious. We won't collect payment from you, but we certainly wouldn't request payment in cryptocurrency or gift cards. So beware of individuals who are quickly professing their love for you. Sometimes, if people seem really needy, that might be a bad sign. Just in general, I guess you could, but more specifically for frauds as well. Beware of individuals who claim to be wealthy but need to borrow money. So if he or she is some jet setter and they've got all these lavish photos of them wearing designer clothes and doing all these really wild vacations and staying in very like sort of living a rich lifestyle, ask yourself why they need to borrow $10,000 from you. When trying to meet in person, be suspicious if they always provide you with reasons to cancel. So if you're trying to meet somebody and they continually offer you elaborate reasons and excuses as to why they can't make it back home or why they can't meet with you, that's also a clue. Never send intimate photos or videos of yourself. They may be used to blackmail or extort you, so that's obviously just a good general rule of thumb. You shouldn't be sending photos or videos of that nature to begin with. Never accept or send money to a third party under any circumstances. And finally, never allow an individual to remotely access your computer. So if somebody sends you an email and they said, hey, I'm going to send you this, you just need to click yes on the pop-up and I'm going to, I'll send the money to myself, or I need you to help me out. Obviously, don't ever click anything that pops up on your computer, or your iPad, or on your cell phone. Okay, additionally, verify any incoming calls of your credit card company. So be sure to end the original call and wait a few minutes before dialing. Never provide any personal or financial information over the telephone. That's just a good general rule of thumb. Credit card company can adjust the interest rates on their own product. Research all the companies and contractors who are offering the services before hiring them. So if you have a roofing company or someone show up at your door, take a few seconds to do your due diligence, try to find them on Google, ask them for resources, see if you can call a previous client, see how happy they were with their service. If you end a call on a landline phone and immediately dial another call, the original call may not be completely disconnected. So wait a few minutes or use another phone to complete your call. Financial institutions will never ask for assistance from the public for internal investigations. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Financial institutions are very highly touted for their privacy, so they will very rarely share any information. The only way to participate in a foreign lottery is to go to the country of origin and purchase a ticket. So if they say you won a lottery somewhere in Africa, unless you've visited Africa recently and bought a lottery ticket, no one can purchase the ticket on your behalf. There's no such thing. In Canada, if you win a lottery, you're not required to pay any fees or taxes in advance. Your money is free and clear. And you can also try confirming with other relatives the whereabouts of the family member. So if you're part of a grandparent scheme and you say your granddaughter has been in a car accident, call your children, right? Call their parents, call their siblings, call somebody. Say, I heard so and so was involved in a car accident. Is that true? And you might be able to answer your own questions and find out that that family member or friend is actually alive and well, and you can find out relatively quickly that the information was false. So some resources, obviously learn more tips and tricks for protecting yourself. So there is a link. I will get them to throw the link in at the end of the presentation for the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. But if you think you know someone or you've been a victim of fraud yourself, please call them. The phone number is here on the screen, 1-888-495-8501. You're also welcome to report fraud online at the Anti-Fraud Center _center-antifraud.ca. So if you go to their website, you can report common scams and what's occurring at the time. You're also welcome to call the Barrie Police Service, 705-725-7025, and you can speak with an officer at any time. We have an officer available to speak with you 24/7. This is where I normally invite people to provide me with new scams, but if it's possible to leave comments on this presentation, then I would invite people to leave comments on any new scam that they've experienced or something we haven't covered in this presentation. I'd be open to reviewing the new scams. And again, likewise, an in-person presentation, this is where I would ask if anybody has any questions and they want some clarity. Hopefully I will be available for a question and answer period when they air this presentation. However, you're welcome to submit your questions or contact any of the resources that were listed on the previous screens, and we will try to get the questions answered for you. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. That concludes the presentation. I hope this knowledge was beneficial to everyone. Obviously, this is something that's very dynamic. It's changing all the time. So just as we're catching on and learning how to identify and protect ourselves, fraudsters are becoming increasingly more intelligent and finding new ways to take advantage of people. So just always be diligent. Make sure you take the time to stop and think and make educated decisions.